more light. It's fine. There's no more light. It's fine. Okay. So 210 grams of flour. So, got your flour? Check that. Don't be ounce. Go away, ounce. I want my brand. Give us my brand. Always do brands, guys. Never ever use cups. Yeah, 10 grams extra. 10 grams extra. Move my 10 grams. 10 grams extra. It's like it's precision chemistry baking. It's just I used to make macarons, and macarons is quite precision baking. Any French baking is precision baking, so always want to be perfect. Okay, so it says 2010. 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder. So this is my baking powder. I always buy by the bulk. I don't buy pre-packaged boxes. What is 2.5 teaspoons? What the heck? Give me some micrograms. Give me some micrograms. Okay, 2.5. I don't think I have a teaspoon. Teaspoon measuring. Oh, I do have a teaspoon. I have a quarter teaspoon, so I'm gonna measure two and a quarter. So 2/4. If it's a quarter, 4 times 8, 8.25 times, because I don't have a teaspoon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and a quarter. Okay, there you go. Always 8.25. And 3 tablespoons. Why didn't they measure it? Hi, Josh. I really like that email, Josh. Okay, where is my whisk? Okay, here you go. That's my whisk. I am going to drink tea, even though it's hot, because I like to drink tea when I'm baking cake. Cake and tea always taste good. So the tea I'm having right now is... What tea am I having? It's the Chinese tea. It's called... I can't read. Wait, I can read. It is a tea. The oolong tea. This is the tea that my mom gave me. She's like, this tea tastes dope. Tastes dope. You need to try it. I was like, thanks, mom. Try it. I'm gonna chill my tea. It's so hot today. I really love tea. I really, really do. So let's go with whisk. Okay. I have to whisk together, and I probably have to sift my flour because it looks so lumpy right now. Okay, I'll save my flour later. It's a prep thing today. So after that, it calls for thyme again. Melissa Forti is such a good baker. She has like interesting flavor baker. She's not like a traditional flavor like, oh, let's make some super sweet things. No, she is like, you know what? I am going to make. She's the type of girl that's like, I'm Sichuan pepper with thyme cake kind of person. So I really like the recipe. So I got my tea, but I'm gonna make my tea to chill. Because I love tea, but I don't like them hot. Okay, so gonna get my thyme. Do you know a joke with thyme? You can always buy more time. Okay, that's a dad joke. You always can buy more time if you run out of time. Buy more time. Time? Buy more time. Always wash. Oh my god, that's a lot of time. She thinks like, okay, let me wash first because it's probably disgusting. This is a lot of time. Okay, it's good enough. So this is what a fresh thyme looks like for those who do not ever see thyme before. This is what a thyme looks like, okay? And when it's fresh, when it's dry, it looks like a little nuggets of leaves, little nuggets. Okay. Oh, by the way, I have watermelon. Come on, eat melon. Yeah. Okay, wash my thyme first. Always wash first. You have no idea where it came from. I have no idea where it came from. It's going to be very disgusting probably. So it says 3 time. So let's chop this thing up. Let's chop some thyme. Wash my thyme. Why is my thyme all wet? I want to dry it. It's disgusting. Thyme. Quickly dry. I want my dry thyme. Okay, I don't like wet thyme. I don't like wet herbs. Okay. By the way, I'm not a professional chef. Don't even listen to my. Don't ever listen to my any of these instructions because it is all wrong. Now I will use my Japanese knife. This is by Knifeware. As you can see, like a typical Japanese knife, it has Japanese writing on it, and that's about it. Japanese knife has Japanese writing, English knives have English writing on it, and German knife have German writing on it. So this is a Japanese knife because it has Japanese words. And this is, I have no idea why is it all lumpy like the surface of the moon, but it's lumpy like the surface of the moon. So I just bought this. It's just a Christmas gift. So I wasn't sure like oh, what kind of knife. So whoever buys Japanese knife and have no idea how to take care of Japanese knife, don't ever buy the Japanese knife. I broke. Okay, I have I want my Japanese knife because that was my first one. I had no idea how to use it because someone gave it to me. And I didn't know that I have to like maintain it more than like a regular knife. I was very surprised. Lesson learned. But they are really good for chopping stuff. Like once you use a Japanese knife, you'll never go back. It's just like it's a lot of work to take care of it. Okay, how do I chop things? I have no idea. Okay, so it says to chop tiny chops. Tiny chop for times. Okay, do they say time leaf or time stand? Okay, I think I include the stand. This is weird. Yeah, nobody plucks. You know what? I'm gonna be extra bougie and take the time leaves only. No stand. She says leaves. See, she says leaves, no stands. Okay, let's go. Let's get Dwayne. Already getting tiny stuff. Okay. Okay, it's easier than I thought. Well, cooking is a learning process. I am not a good cook anyways. I just like to cook because I like to cook doesn't mean I'm a good cook. I just like to cook because it's fun. It's like save money, it's healthy, and that's all of it. So I'm gonna just get the leaves because we say leaves, but no stem, no nothing, no stem. You're gonna see my stem. You're gonna see my stem deveining things processed. I wish I'm like not that tall. Okay, I hope you can see. So I'm just, she says like leaves, but no stems. So be proper, guys. Okay, I'm gonna be proper and just take the leaves. This is ridiculous. I bet like bougie Michelin star restaurant does this. It's Like, hey intern, take this out. We don't need stems. Then the poor Michelin star intern has to take the leaves out. After a 4-year degree studying in Gordon Bleu, whatever restaurant from the France Culinary Art School, Cordon Bleu. I guess that's the bougie one. Yeah, probably that one. It's like graduated 4 years only to like pick leaves from working in a Michelin star restaurant. That's how shitty they are. Michelin star restaurants are pretty. I mean, Michelin star restaurants are not shitty, but it's just I'm saying that work environment is probably shitty. Like restaurant business is brutal. Like I don't know. Like restaurant business is brutal, guys. It's not like fancy. Like I remember reading about what is it? I remember reading about article in about French culinary, like those like high level class. The abuse is really high there. And when one of the girls, she like wrote a blog about working in French restaurant is so different than working in American restaurant. American restaurant and tamer, everybody's like actually decent human being, but in France they just yell at you all the time. That's her experience. Because when she moved to the States from France, she was yelling at people like France, what she did in France, and people was like, no, you can't do that, that's bad. So apparently French restaurant is really toxic environment to work. So here you go. I'm getting all my stems. Getting all my leaves out. She says to get leaves and stems. Oh, it says 3 tablespoons. Okay, this is less than 3 tablespoons. So go. Get my cake done. Okay, my cake is probably not going to rise. I'm gonna jinx it, guys. I'm gonna jinx my cake. Okay, this is the Michelin star level service right here I'm doing. Really good. I wish you guys can smell it. It smells really good, guys. Get some fresh thyme next time. Get some fresh thyme next time as you're running out of time. Ka-ching! And okay, I get my leaves. I don't want my stains. I want my leaves. I have really bad technique for taking out leaves. Okay, I have to go against the grain. Yeah, I have to go against the stem. But then it's getting more stems. I'm Is this 1 tablespoon? 1 tablespoon. Yeah. Here you go. 3 tablespoons. This is 1 tablespoon. Okay, I have 1 tablespoon. That's another one. She said leaves. She said no stems. It's some high quality farm. But you know, I will take my time. One thing to have your birthday falls on a national holiday is that it's harder to get people. My complaints. Why is my birthday on national holiday? Okay, Gordon Ramsay, if you're watching this, please don't hate me. I'm trying my best. Gordon Ramsay, don't hate me. Don't judge me, internet. No, you can judge me, it's fine. You know what? You can judge my cooking, but at the end of the day, it's my cake, my way, my food, my way, my body, my choice. Okay. they're gonna get more time. Okay. Right. Oh, my tea's probably really. While I am baking, I'm gonna eat. My tea is done. I like my tea chill. I want to eat my baguette. So, hello. Hey, thank you, John. Happy birthday to everybody whose birthday is here. So this is my baguette. I like to eat my baguette like that. Actually, like just pure baguette. No, actually, I have a ahi tuna. Where's my ahi tuna? Where is it? I got an ahi tuna from my local restaurant. So I'm just gonna eat some of that. My baguette, the bougie person. That's my own hair on it. Disgusting. Cheers. Cheers for baguette. Ah, my phone, don't die on me. Okay, my phone wants to die on me. So. Baguette. Baguette is gone. Fucking like baguettes, man. Fucking baguettes, they're awesome. I like long little bread. Like, I don't know what's going on with the French, but they're like, let's make a long bread and call it baguette and let's eat it. It's like, yeah, long bread. I'm down for long bread. Fuck yeah, baguette. Fucking baguette, man. Oh, my hair's everywhere. Go away, hair. Guys, if you ever get a girlfriend, bear in mind she'll like have a lot of hair around because I drop my hair everywhere. Things to know. When getting a girlfriend, you'll have hair everywhere. I mean, guys also have hair everywhere if they have long hair. It's just like long hair is much more noticeable. That's why. And girls usually have long hair, so it's just much more noticeable. But everybody drops hair at the same rate. Oh, it smells really good, guys. Get some time next time. Get some time. More money, more time. Okay, I don't have enough. I need more time. Give me more time. Where's my time? Okay, I need to get more. Apparently, I underestimated the amount of time I needed. I underestimated the time. Okay, get more time. Okay, this is the amount that I need. I need one more tablespoon. I wish I could. You know what? Where's my scissors? I will just cut it like the. I'll just cut it like the hobo. Just cut it like a barbarian. Just can't be bothered. We're gonna cut it like barbarians. I don't have time to cut. There's so much time. Oh, there's so much time joke now, guys. I have to change the title. I have to change the title of my stream to time. So much time. That's the word. Okay, let me see. So much time on my hand. Where's my stream manager? Oh wait. So much time on my hand. There you go. New title. New title of my stream. So much time on my hand. Gonna cut like losers. Okay, there you go. Do I have enough time? Do I have enough time to check? I do not know whether to cut. Fine. I hate just getting the leaves. I'm pretty sure they just chop it together. Like, they don't waste their time like that. They don't waste their time like that. Yeah, I know, right, Josh? It's like, like my birthday, it's the same day as national holiday. But national holiday today is Canada Day, so Josh, I understand your aunt's pain now. Okay, I have 2 tablespoons now. Let me get 3 tablespoons. The third one. How do you say aunt in aunt in Espanol? It's like abuela. Abuela is like grandma, I think. Aunt is like, let me think. I think it probably sounds. I have to think what's the French for aunt. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, my birthday has fireworks. Tia. Tia. My birthday has fireworks, guys. That's the good thing about it. Well, at least my birthday is not as bad as people who are like born on Christmas and have like like people are born with Christmas and then they have no presents. There's only one present. I feel bad for that one. Okay, one more to go. One more teaspoon of thyme to go. Thyme. If you need more time, just buy thyme at your grocery store. Okay, there's a lot of thyme joke today because of time. Wait, should I preheat my oven? I totally forgot. Let me. Yeah, preheat oven. Sorry. Preheat to 170 degrees. Okay, there you go. 100. Totally forgot to turn on my oven. I'll be like delay. Wait, so what is carnival? I never hear that before, Josh. Like I would assume carnival is like a new year, like an English New Year. Then what do you do for carnival? You have to explain, Josh. You have to explain. You have to explain everything. Everything in South American culture is very foreign to me. Like I haven't been to South America before. Like everything is very foreign to me. I wish I could go there. Like I want to visit South America, but everybody says like not safe as the person to go, etc., etc. So I never step foot because everybody keeps saying not safe, and I was like you know, like travel. I like to travel by myself because I always do Europe instead because it's like nicer, safer. But I want to do South America one day. Oh, do I have enough? Do I have enough? I think I have enough. Okay, I don't need to take more time. Ka-ching! Take more time. Ah, the terrain. Sorry, that thing keeps sticking on my hand. Those time is sticking on my hand. I don't like it. Festive. Okay, I'll visit you, Josh, one day. I'll save money and go there because I want to go Patagonia anyways. So, okay, I got all my time now. All my time here. Is it enough? Is there another one? Do I need to do more? Okay, I do more. One little bit more. Because the flavor will kind of dissipate. It's always slightly better to have more than less. Especially for baking, because the flavor would just go. Okay, one last one. But less in the city, you know what? I prefer like rural celebration as well. Like this, like big one is okay, but big one sometimes can get too messy. I don't like it. I prefer rural celebration. Like big can be fun, but I'm a rural girl. I like smaller. I like smaller events. I told you guys before, I guess, like I'll be terrified to have wedding ceremony, wedding anything wedding because it's like I don't like parties that is too big. It's like scary. Okay, I'm washing my hands too much as a baker. A baker doesn't wash it. Go away, flies. Okay, it says finely chopped. Oh, it smells so good, guys. The thyme is amazing. Thyme is so good. Oh, I love it. It says finely chopped. I have no idea what finely chopped is. How micro? Do they want me to go like micro level? No, I'm just joking. Like the problem in my baking is like they always use this kind of measurement that is so inconsistent. Like what, like nanograms? Give me some expectations. Like I can't bake like that. I'm always like terrified of like baking. Like what is finely chopped size? What does it mean? Okay, got my time. Okay, time got done. Ah, this is what my hand. Okay, go there. Oh, there's time. Okay, I need timing to. Oh, I forget my eggs. So my eggs, it's like my eggs are like in my eggs. The format was like chilled. I need to put room temperature. There you go. That's my room temperature. Silly little room temperature. A bit chilled right now. Okay, there you go. Go room temperature. Go egg. Okay. Time, I got my time on me. Okay. Large lemon. Okay, I got. Okay, what is a large? Okay, the recipe says for large lemon. I have no idea what a large lemon, like GMO size large lemon, or a regular organic size lemon, because organic large lemon is very different from GMO size large lemon, and they don't specify this kind of thing. People don't specify this kind of thing. Okay, what is large lemon? This is large. Okay, I assume this is what a large lemon is. This looks like medium. I feel like this is medium size, but you know, bakers don't use the actual measurement metric. Okay, this is a triangle. Let's do that. Oh, the lemon. Is it lime though? Lime and lemon. My country back home is we don't have lemon. We have something like lemon, but it's green, so it's like a lime, and we use it as a substitute for lemon because we don't have lemon. So for lemon, I want to mix it up. It says for grated zest of 2 large lemons. Okay, let's grate. I'm gonna hurt, guys. I'm gonna hurt myself. I always hurt with this thing. I always hurt my fingers. So hopefully I don't hurt myself this time. My hair, go away. Hair, go away. So Josh, before yesterday, I was thinking about making a pie, lime pie, the green one instead of lemon. But my neighbor gave me lemon, so I was like, okay, fine, I have lemons instead, so I have to make something lemon. I actually plan to make a key lime pie tart for the stream. Because I want to teach people that recipe because it's really easy. The key lime pie tart, all you need is like condensed milk, 2 egg yolks, and a pie base, and you bake it. And it's so easy. It's really delicious. And it's good for people who are like first time baking, who's like very scared of baking. That's good for like starter. But since I got lemon, I just decided to use lemon instead. How do you say lemon in Spanish? Limon. Okay, I don't want to see. I don't want to see my. Can I just see my chat? I don't want to see my viewer count. It's annoying. Like viewer count give me anxiety. I want to see my I'm watching my own stream, which is ridiculous. Just want to see my own. Oh, you know what? You know what? I go to the dashboard, then I can turn it off. Okay. Okay. I'm so stupid. How can I be so ridiculous at the same time? Why can't I be so confident about programming at the same time, be so stupid and stuff like that? I'm not too confident with programming. I'm just saying, like, I'm confident that I can do something, but sometimes video producer. I'm not saying I'm overconfident. I'm just saying like I'm confident at some things that I can do. Like example, I'm confident I can cook rice. I'm confident I can boil water. I'm confident I can boil egg. Like that kind of confidence. It's like then you stuck with like easy problem, and then you'll be like, I'm not confident anymore. Phase 2. See, I'm gonna hurt myself. I'm very bad with this. Okay, it's actually cost stream manager. Yeah, there you go. I don't want to see my viewer. I don't want to see my viewer count because that's ridiculous. Okay, there you go. Oh wait, I still have. Aha! Done. Maybe I can. People are gonna criticize my cooking techniques. It's like, oh, you should cut your lemon this way. Cut your lemon. Hi! No problem! Thanks for coming and thanks for lurking, Yogi Bear. Another viewer count. It's always give me stress. Dancing time. Okay. Okay, I turn off my viewer counts now. I don't have to see anybody anymore. Okay, just go. 2 lemon. Okay, you know what? Let me chop the edge. This one is always dangerous. I need a man in this house. I'm tired. Oh, I'm tired. I'm literally very tired from waiting. Okay. I'm so tired. Very tired. Oh, I'm tired. How God help me. Give me the power of Zeus. Give me the power of Hercules. Oh, keep waiting that lemon. I'm so weak. I'm very weak. Okay, come on. Come on, come on, you got it. Here, look. Oh, okay, I need a lactic acid is building on my arms. Okay, almost done, almost done. Okay. Okay, done. Okay. Who's this? Who's this? This is. I'm tired. Who's this of lemon? There you go. I hate this recipe because it's a lot of work. Who's that of lemon? My hand is lemony now. You have the smell of lemon and thyme, guys. Oh. 240 milli, 250 gram of caster sugar. Okay, grab sugar. I'm very short. This is my leather. My leather right here. Need to get sugar. Roger sugar since 1890. Okay. Okay, it says for this is what a 2 zest of lemon looks like. They didn't say what kind of lemon size. They didn't say GMO lemon or regular lemon. Okay, so 250 grams. There you go. Sugar. 250 gram. Okay, there it is. Ah, miss. Okay, let me get some clippy. No, where do I have clippy? Oh, my clippy is gone. Where's my old clippy? Oh, got my clippy. 969 short. Oh my god, I feel so bad for guys. I'm so happy I'm not born a guy, you know? Like, that's one thing I'll say. Okay, got my sugar. 150 milliliter of oil. One hundred and 150 milliliter of oil. Okay, I think I got oil. So this is olive oil, and it says for 150 milliliter. I have parallax arrow, guys. A white parallax arrow. Okay, I got my oil. And 240 milliliter. I don't have enough measuring cups. Okay, I will assume. So this recipe has yogurt. So I'm gonna. So 1 cup is. 1 container is how many milliliters? So it says 100 grams. It doesn't say. It doesn't say the volume. It gave me. It doesn't say volume. It gave me the grams. I don't like it. I don't like measuring things like that. Oh, good lord. Okay, fine. I hate you. So this is a 240 milliliter. Okay, let's go get some Greek yogurt. Okay, got my yogurt. So, okay, this is definitely not. So this is just a regular plain Greek yogurt. It's supposed to be full fat, but I don't have full fat with me. Cause I'm not in Europe. I don't have this kind of things. I think 2 boxes. No, I need one more thing. I need one more round. You know what? I'm not gonna watch that video. There you go. Okay, this is 240. And I'm gonna cover it with no, wrong cover. I'm gonna put it in the Tupperware. I want it to be like, I don't want it to explode. So I got everything, and now I'm gonna go to the washroom. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. Let me drink some water. Let me have some tea, guys. It's hot. But this is a summer cake anyways. So I have no idea. Okay, I have no idea how to use this. So it'll be my first time. This contraption. I think I will put the paper there. Do I have paper? Can I just like that? Can I lazy my way through? That's the question. Yes, I can lazy my way through. Okay, I will lazy my way through. Oh wait, I can open like that. Oh, I don't need a parchment paper. It says to line. It says to line my. Well, actually, I can just. Yeah, it's fine. I can just. Oh wait. It will leak though. Okay, it will leak. Okay, let me line it. It will leak. It will leak because it has an opening base. Okay, so it's better to line it. Yeah, it will leak. For sure. I got the feeling I'm not trusting it. Now it has yogurt on it. There you go. You wipe it off the yogurt. Yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just I don't want it to be like perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just do not want it to be. There you go. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. So mix together the salt. Oh, I have to have salt. A pinch of salt. What is a pinch of salt? I'm pretty sure it's like a quarter of salt. Okay, let me. Do I need to sieve my flour? Okay, I don't need to sieve my flour. Fine, simple. Where's my salt? So my flour, we already have baking powder in it. My sugar. So I always mix the dry ingredient together first. That's basically like any cooking rule. Basic, very basic cooking rule. Mix it together. And oh yeah, I have to put the thyme in together. Sorry, I mix it like one by one. I just want to prevent it like irregular mixing. So that's my thyme. Should I mix it together in the oil? It's okay. No worries. What end of the world. Because the thyme I get to mix together with the oil, so it just disperses in the oil first. How long should I this time? Okay. I don't have fingernails to open. I don't have fingernails to open. Why you disappoint me like that? Okay, this is just the vanilla. How much vanilla do I have? 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract of. Okay, 1 teaspoon. 1, 2, 3, 4. There you go. Spill all over. So I have to use another mixer now. And my room temperature egg. Okay, let's mix it together. Hopefully, 2 large egg, right? Yeah, 2 large egg. 2 large chicken eggs, not ostrich eggs, not emu eggs, not penguin eggs, just 2 regular chicken eggs. Because if you use 2 large ostrich eggs, it's gonna be huge. Okay, I might need to use my hand. Ah, it's messy. Well, baking is messy anyways. Come on, get into the... I'm gonna use a spatula instead. Where is Mr. Spatula? Okay, Mr. Spatula is here. Let me wash this spatula. Spatula, Mr. Spatula. I'm gonna mix it with spatula. Mr. Spatula, Mr. Spatula. Everything has a name in my house. Hi, hi, how are you? I'm making a cake for my birthday. This is called lemon thyme cake. This is it's an Italian baker. Her name is Melissa Forti. She always uses interesting ingredients. So almost done. I just need to add Greek yogurt. So her recipe always have interesting ingredients like Greek yogurt and stuff like that. So I'm always looking forward to make her recipe. Thank you. Thank you guys. I heard thunderstorm, so national holiday is canceled in my place. So I'm having my birthday indoors. So this is okay. I don't think my pen is big. I'll use the square pen. This is way bigger than the. This is way too small. Okay, I'll use the big pen. Use the bigger pen this time. Yeah, I'll use the bigger pen. This is way too small. I wanted to use this one because it's like a round cake, but I'll have a square cake instead. Let me wipe the base. So I'll have a square cake, guys. Square cake is fine. It's just left. It's just left perfect. I don't want perfect. That's all I'm asking. Everybody's sitting. That's so nice. Okay, go there. Stay there. Okay, there we go. There's a trick I learned in baking is that they take a little bit of that edge and then stick it. Stick it like that. So that's what they do. They take a little bit of the ingredient and put it at the bottom so the parchment paper just stick at the bottom. That's a little hard. There you go, it sticks now. See? This is my special technique. They just take a little of your dough and then you just, the paper will stick down. Okay, just gonna mix it thoroughly. How mixed do I into a line thing? Okay. So this is how it looks like, guys. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Okay. This is a lot of cake by myself, actually. I'm gonna give some to my neighbors. Spread, spread, mister, spread. Spread the cake. I guess this is a dairy-free. Oh wait, it had yogurt, so it's not dairy-free. I was like, wait, it looks like dairy-free. It had butter. Okay, before this baby go into oven, I'm gonna time it. I'm gonna time. I'm gonna time the time. Gonna time for 45 minutes. 40 minutes. Time. Okay, let's do 40 minutes. 170 degrees. That's what it says. Double check. Always double check the measurements. I hope you guys like lemon cake. I like lemon because I got some from my neighbors. I'm gonna share it with her too. So now I'm going to mix syrup. So this cake has syrup on it. So all I need to do is get 1.5 cup of lemon juice. So I have to wash this. So the dishwasher in North America calls me bougie. No. Dishwasher that. So I have to wash it again. So let me get. Okay, let me get some lemon juice now. I don't think I have energy to do lemon juice. It's so much work. Okay, let's do lemon juice. I trust myself. So let's make syrup, guys. Just checking my chat. Okay, everything's good. So I just need 150 milligrams. So lemon squeezer. Do I have Mr. Lemon Squeezer? I do have Mr. Lemon Squeezer here. Let me wash Mr. Lemon Squeezer. Okay, let's do. Let's get the seed out. I don't want it to bitter. Okay. Hope you guys like my cake. Wait, let me squeeze first. I need some. Need some. Okay, now I can put lemon squeeze. Take away the seed. I don't like the seed. The seed is always bitter. Oh, maybe I need to squeeze more lemon. Okay. Squeeze more lemon this time. Thank you so much, Lancelot. You're always so supportive. But this is very hard on my hand. Apparently, baking is very difficult for my energy draining. Do you guys bake at home? Do you guys ever bake stuff? I wanted to do lemon tart. I wanted to do lemon tart stream today because I was thinking like, oh, the recipe is very simple that you guys can do at home. But I changed my mind. I want to do something complicated. Because the lemon tart I was planning to show is very simple. All you need is like condensed milk, 2 egg yolk, and just lemon juice and lemon zest, and it's a wonderful recipe. The tart you just buy from like the store. You just buy the tart basically. You don't have to be like difficult. Oh my god. Okay. I apparently I need more. 115. Yeah, I need 115. This is why my neighbor gave me a lot of lemons for the lemonade. Look at my Japanese knife, guys. It has Japanese word on it. How do you know it's a Japanese knife? It has Japanese word on it. If it has English word on it, it's an English knife, and it has German word on it, it's a German knife. Okay. Ah, you bake too, George. Oh, that's you know what? We should share a recipe on like Discord. I'm pretty sure like South American baking are like has their own flair to it. Cause in Asian baking, the cake is always like so soft and too sweet. I don't like. I like more like European or like Germanic style baking, which is less sweet. Oh my god! Like Japanese dessert is good. It's just so sweet. No hate on Japanese dessert. It's just so sweet, ridiculously sweet. I need a man in this house. Okay, time to find a boyfriend. Go, Tetra, find a boyfriend. Nobody's to squeeze this juice for me. Okay. Oh, let's see. Pick up the seed. Vanilla. You know what? Chocolate is always good. I have no hate for chocolate. It's just like, but once in a while, I want something fruity, like raspberry cake or strawberry cake. Like once in a while, I think those are really good. Eh. 115. Okay, I don't think I need another. Yeah, I don't need an. I don't think I need. It's good. I have leftover lemon for lemonade, guys. I'm so happy I have lemonade. Do you guys have a family recipe like you never share? It's like the secret. I know I have a friend who's like, oh, this is family secret. Like every time I ask her, wow, this tastes so good. Like, what's the recipe? Oh, it's a family secret. She just never shares. It's annoying. So annoying. I don't like it. I don't like it. It's like annoying. I don't like people say things like that to me. But it's okay. I'm not judging. I'm not hating. Like people have their own secret recipes. So it made me on a quest to develop my own secret recipe cake now. I don't have a secret recipe cake, but I do have a secret recipe cookie I made myself. It's a very special kind. It's a combo. It's a fusion between my own country's cookie with Western style French cookie. So hey Flame, how are you? I'm just baking a lemon cake, lemon thyme cake. A lot of time. It takes a lot of time to cook lemon thyme. Time. So much. I wasted one. I forgot this. No mind. Go away. I'll make lemonade, guys. I'll make lemonade. Okay. So now I just making. Yeah, I make lemon cake right now. I already put it in the oven, but I'm making syrup right now. Make lemon syrup to drizzle on the cake. What? Moon? Moon? Okay, what if okay, give me an example. If I bake my cake like grumpy, what will the cake be? I'm curious now. If I bake it grumpy, I'm baking my cake grumpy. What would be that be? Okay. First. So to make a syrup, it says grumpy lemon cake. Like SpongeBob when SpongeBob dries out, he becomes like very grumpy. Okay, it says like to make the syrup, I need to put sugar. It's dissolved. I don't need to make. Oh, I don't need the syrup to be sticky. Okay, now that was like trying to get. I was like, do I need the syrup to be sticky? It's like, no, I just need the syrup to be watery. Okay, 115 grams of sugar. Your aunt still tastes better when she's angry. Okay, so in my culture, we make dumpling, the boiled dumpling. So in my culture, it's like if you say we have like superstition, it's like if you say the dumpling is gonna be well done, the dumpling will never float to the surface. The dumpling was always in the bottom. So you'll never talk anything about dumpling when you're cooking dumpling. That's my superstition. Oh wait. This is wrong. I want my metric unit. I don't want you freaking North American pound and gram and ounces. Those are miserable units. I hate you Americans. Americans, because of you, the world is still confused with measurement system. Like, come on guys, you are the world leader. Just do something good for once. Like bring it to the Supreme Court of USA and be like, someone bring the case to the US Supreme Court and say like everybody has to use a goddamn metric system, okay? Freaking annoying. But no, US always has to be like the exceptional one. Sorry, I'm not. Don't hate me, US people. I'm just complaining about that system. Okay, so I'm gonna boil this. Oh. Okay, let me wipe a bit. It's not dirty, but it's like that's nice to keep it clean. Okay, it's clean now. It's clean. So let me mix the sugar. Let me get another thing. Oh, hold on. I forgot the seeds. Flame, what is your favorite flavor for cakes? That's a lot of sugar. Oh, they use pound. I like to use kg too. I don't like to use pound, but it's quite annoying. I agree with you, Josh. I like to use kg. Okay. I just gotta transition my camera to like show you guys my boiling. Hold on. There, boiling. Okay, there you go. You can see my boiling. Hello. Oh. Wait, I can't see my face. Hold on. I have to put my face. My face is the most important thing for Twitch. Okay, there you go. So it stays to cook in the medium what? What do you call it? Medium saucepan? Medium heat? My brain is not working. Oh wait, let me check my cake. Okay, it's good. Okay, I think my cake is going to overflow, but I'm not gonna give a shit. So let's it says to use medium until the sugar is ready. Okay. Look at all that sugar. It's diabetic. It's diabetic, guys. So this is the syrup for the cake. Where is my whisk? Okay, wait. I have to use a wooden spoon instead. So let's dissolve the sugar, guys. Watching me dissolve sugar on my left hand. Dissolve sugar, dissolve. Sugar. I want to see what kind of cake I need to. Until the golden top of the skewer, golden on top. What is golden? Is that golden? No, it's not golden. I have to wait for it to be golden, guys. I don't know, open it too much, or else the baking will be like off. Oh, it's melting. Hi, Busy. How are you? No, it's a baking. It's a baking for my cake. Okay. Yeah, it's a lemon cake, and I'm making the syrup. So this, like, after the cake is out, I'm gonna pour the syrup on the cake. No worries, Busy. How are you? How's your weather? And what type of cake you like? What's your favorite flavor? Okay, the sugar. So now all I need to do is wait for the cake to bake. So what I'm gonna do is like I'm gonna position my camera. I'm gonna position the camera in front. so that you guys can see the cake. So what I'm gonna do is just show you the cake baking process. Okay, I need to like reduce the height. And that's it. So I'm gonna live stream the cake rising. Should be good. I think you can see it here. Can you see it rising? So, well, it's good enough. It's not gonna be perfect. It's so disgusting. Look at my oven. It will be a lemon cake. Well, I'm gonna go back to my room and chat with you guys. Hold on, I'm gonna set it up in my room.